know how to tap into my knowing. And therefore, we make ourselves obsolete. So we are excited when people no longer need to see us. That is our journey, that is our goal, and we want to do that in the most efficient, effective way as possible to re-empower people to trust their knowing, understand what it is, and how to get there, and how to pull out those answers. So we ask the questions, and you get the answers for yourself. So that's how we work, and that's the philosophy of Kids Coaching Connection. We believe every child is born for a purpose, on purpose, and that every child is born naturally perfect, whole, complete, resourceful, and knowing. And that we see every child as perfect, not broken or needs fixing. And from that lens, we're able to unlock what is truly their purpose, and what we call in our program their divine design, all their unique, innate gifts, talents, and treasures, and so that they can live a life on purpose. So that's a bit of who I am and a bit of how I work. Tonight I was asked to speak specifically in the area of culture and mental health, and how culture can impact mental health. And so when I took some from my own personal experiences in private practice and in working in schools and different areas of our community, as well as some research I've done on things that people of different cultures experience in terms of mental health. So I will just begin here. So what is culture? When we think of the word culture, what comes to mind? So culture can be defined as the customary beliefs, social norms, traits, whether it be racial, religious, social. It's characteristics of a group and defines the way that they operate and exist in the world. It's a set of shared attitudes, values, goals, practices, and behaviors that actually they operate by. And so that's the general definition of what culture is. So when you think of culture in terms of specifically what I'm asked to speak on tonight is ethnicity. So culture can be sports teams, culture can be profession, culture within organizations, but specifically cultural effects on mental health. What's the purpose of culture? Culture is a container in which a group of individuals exist, and therefore they're governed and they operate by a set of rules and guidelines and regulations, beliefs, and within that culture, you must adhere to those rules, regulations, beliefs, and values. It is believed that each individual within that culture, that their specific guidelines will yield the best outcome from the group, for the group or the culture, and that's the reason those things are put in. So the idea is that those rules and guidelines and things are to allow that culture to thrive and to have the best outcome. One of the things I found is in looking at this research and in working with families of many, many cultures, I work worldwide, so diverse. I myself was born in Guyana and in South America. So came here when I was 2 years old and understand what it's like to be a newcomer to Canada, both through myself as a child and as my family. So what we know is that cultures have a set of expectations. So when we talk about culture and mental health, we talk about the expectations that culture has on the individuals within that culture. And there's two types of expectations. Some are variables with wiggle room, discussion, and compromise. And then there's some rules, regulations, and guidelines within culture that what I would call non-negotiable, which seem to be fixed, no wiggle room, without change, and anyone that operates outside those rules and regulations, there could be ridicule, outcast, humiliation, and all of those things. So this is something within culture that can affect an individual's mental health both within the variable aspects of those cultural expectations, as well as the non-negotiable fixed aspects of those cultural expectations. So there are hundreds of areas that I could focus on, but I decided to pick 4 areas here for this evening to keep it short. The first area is gender roles within culture. We know that cultures have, a variety of cultures have their own individual gender expectations and roles within culture. And oftentimes, when you step outside of those gender roles within culture, you can experience individually and intrinsically some sense of mental struggle and challenge. And then within your community or culture, you can also experience negativity that can cause you to have some mental health struggles and challenges. The second area is birth order and sibling roles within culture. What I found through my practice and serving a wide, diverse clientele is there are certain cultures that actually have guidelines and things put in place according to birth order. So the firstborn in a family versus the middle versus the youngest in the family, and how those expectations, roles, and responsibilities actually impact the individual, and how that individual navigates within that certain culture's expectations based on birth order. The third one is poverty and violence. So we know there are certain cultures around the world that actually experience poverty and violence on a regular basis as their everyday experience, whether it's genocide, war, violence, and this is their everyday life. And so when we looking at an individual who has experienced poverty and violence for the majority of their life, and it's part of their culture, we look at that existence within that culture as being something that affects greatly, as we can only imagine, their mental health and mental health and mental wellness. What we often find with these individuals is they become almost normalized, right? This is just how life is. And to help that individual see that life could be different can often be a challenge based on those deep-seated experiences and those expectations. So we talk about poverty and violence in culture and how that affects mental health. And the fourth one is expression of feelings, emotions, and opinions within culture. So what I focus on here is about certain cultures embrace, acknowledge, and recognize the opinions and expressions and feelings of each other. And then there's cultures that children should be seen and not heard, or there's not a lot of room for self-expression, for expression of emotions such as sadness or anger or frustration or disappointment. And that realm of emotions has no place to express itself. So we know when something cannot be outwardly expressed, it becomes inwardly expressed. And that's when we start to get some sort of oftentimes physical issues going on. Lots of people that suffer with mental health issues tend to have tummy aches, headaches, migraines, aches and pains in their body, fatigue, and those types of things, because they are actually taking all of that and putting it inward. And that is an unhealthy thing to do. So certain cultures that expect you to suppress your feelings or not, not express them, or you're ridiculed or humiliated or sent to your room or punished for having feelings because they don't know how to navigate them. That can also be a huge aspect if you've grown up in a culture that doesn't allow your opinions, your voice, and the expression of your full range of emotions. So I'm just going to go down just a minute each with these sections. We talk about gender roles. We talk about females. If I have clients that are females, whether they're young girls or older women, In certain cultures, their opportunities for education, career, financial gain, and function within culture may not necessarily match intrinsically how they feel and what their goals and dreams are for their life. Family, some cultures are not welcome if a woman doesn't want to be married or have children. These are all things if I have a client that doesn't see herself getting married or being a mother. So again, marriage, children, expectations, even dress, clothing, all of these kinds of things, these gender roles within a variety of cultures can be something that causes an individual to have challenges and struggles. And then we have the male role, the responsibilities, the breadwinner, all of these types of roles that we have for certain men in certain cultures, and how that impacts them, the stress and the pressure in those male roles within culture. When we talk about birth order, I've worked with clients who as the firstborn has to be a caregiver to their younger siblings. It's an expectation. And often those, whether they're children or whether they come to me as adults expressing these younger years of experience, they found they had no childhood. They felt that they had to grow up too quickly. They had a lot of responsibility as a firstborn. For some cultures, a firstborn is meant to take over, say, the family business or the family farm or something like that. And that's not that person's individual need, desire. And so those birth order roles within culture can often feel a lot of stress. There's a lot of mental health issues around the pressure of birth order expectations within culture. And these individuals tend to feel like they are not able to follow their own divine path, but instead one that's been rolled out for them through their culture. So again, that can sometimes lead and often lead to mental health issues, depression, anxiety, even suicide. When you feel like it's not something you can get out of, it's not a role that fits you, but one you have to play. For the middle child can constantly feel compared to the eldest sibling. There's a lot of comparison that comes when you have multiple children. In certain cultures, that is definitely more prevalent than other cultures. And so the comparison game between siblings not only creates mental health issues for the individuals in that, but also breaks down the sibling relationship. And we know when sibling relationships are broken down within families due to these cultural behaviors, that causes even more mental health issues, because when we have a breakdown of family, sibling relationships, that is another whole category that we could talk about when it comes to mental health issues and being disconnected from your family or having those broken down relationships, often imprinted very young in childhood due to these birth order roles within culture. And then we have our youngest child, either the youngest or they tend to be unheard, unseen. They feel unacknowledged. They're constantly the baby. They're constantly looked at that way. They don't feel like they have a voice. They don't feel like anybody takes them seriously. And oftentimes, and so that's one aspect. And on the other aspect, they could be overparented. Because they're the baby, they can have some other kinds of over parenting experiences that happen within culture that cause them to stunts their growth and their maturity and things like that. And so they didn't have the opportunities that, say, were presented to their older siblings because of those cultural beliefs and cultural programs and patterns. So we definitely see in birth order lots of issues around cultural expectations based on birth order. And then we have poverty. We have poverty and violence. We have the cultures that poverty is pervasive through their culture. Some cultures obviously experience poverty greater than other cultures. So their daily experiences are uncertainty and hunger and violence and war, constant fear of harm, lack of hope and stability. A lot of these children and adults within these types of cultures have a lot of severe PTSD. And we talk about substance abuse and all kinds of things that can come up because of those specific cultural experiences. So again, when we're looking at mental health through culture, we need to take into account culture. We need to take into account, and it's not a one size fits all. It's not everyone is treated the same, or it's just not a one size fits all approach. We take in the whole picture of each culture. And then the last one is expressions of feelings, emotions, and opinions. So we know that within culture, the role of a child can vary from culture to culture. A role of a child can be seen and not heard. Some cultures have a very authoritative approach to raising children. Some cultures have a more integrative approach to raising children. In some cultures, the use of physical punishment or reprimand is still part of their culture. Different ways of consequences. And so we have to take into account that every client we work with, we have to take all those things into account and allow them to maybe for the first time be able to say how they truly feel. And that could happen in your office for the very first time in their life, even in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. So the idea that, you know, people should be able to express their feelings, they should be able to articulate their emotions, this is a false belief that everyone you know, across the world is good at expressing their feelings and emotions and their opinions. That's not the case. And culture tends to play into that depending on the cultural beliefs around that. If they could be punished for speaking up, punished for having a difference of opinion or something opposing those cultural norms. They can, and then we have the opposite. We have cultures that are very open and expressive in the way that they allow their children to feel all the feels and express all the emotions and be able to navigate through that with them in a healthy way. This lack of expression leads to suppression, which leads to oftentimes depression. So if something is not expressed and it's suppressed, then it's depressed. So depression, if you just take up, I'm not using the disease term because I'm not qualified to use the disease term, but if you think of depression, something is depressed. So if you think about that, that is the natural role sometimes and pattern and path that someone who has not been allowed to be fully expressed in all their feelings, all their opinions, all their emotions, all their thoughts. So that's something that we definitely see in people with, in terms of self-worth and all of those types of things. And lack of expression also can lead to anger and rage. So sometimes we see anger and rage as a behavior to be reprimanded, but as coaches, we see that as information. So every expression is information that we get curious about. And so we dig out the reason that child is expressing that way, because all expressions are welcome. We also can see isolation, withdrawal, unmotivated, even self-harm or suicidal thoughts. So this is kind of like the downward spiral of individuals that have not been given a place to express themselves. And so we want to, of course, as parents, as community members, and of course, as healthcare and practitioners in this arena, we want to be able to identify early and get early interventions when we start to see early things. signs so that we can prevent the spiral path that we see that happens. So in summary, as a mental health practitioner, as someone who is in this field along with so many other amazing people, we must take into account the roles culture plays in individuals in the arena of mental health. We must make sure we provide accessible, suitable services to all cultural groups. We must provide more affordable and accessible services to all cultural groups. Bringing awareness to early signs and symptoms to all cultural groups, and reduce the stigma certain cultures may have in reaching out for help. Thank you all for allowing me to speak this evening, and together I know that we can make a difference and break the stigma around mental health.
Amazing, thank you so much, Michelle. Next, we have Brenda Vander Zanden. She is our final speaker talking to us about mindfulness. She is a certified life and mindset coach, as well as an EFT and mindfulness practitioner. Brenda specializes in helping women build resilience after personal or professional setback. Her mission is to help women use the 3 M's, mindset, mindfulness, and manifestation, to work through fear, failure, so that they can reconnect with their inner strength and trust their voice enough to do it anyway, to go after the imperfect things, the scary things, all the fulfilling things that are waiting for you on the other side of your current situation. Thank you so much, Brenda, for joining us. I tried to unmute you. There you go.
Yes.
And go right ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. And thank you to Angela, Madhu, and Ramona for inviting me to be here tonight as one of the guest speakers. So yes, as Blair said, my name is Brenda Vander Zanden. And out of all of the modalities that she listed, mindfulness, meditation, EFT, I would say the one that's closest to my heart is mindfulness. And there's a reason for that. About 4 years ago, actually 4 years ago and a little bit, my twins were born, and I ended up having birth trauma as a result of the events leading up to the birth, and then their resulting stay in the NICU for a month afterwards. And it was just a lot of depression. I didn't know what it was called at the time. I just knew that something was off, and I couldn't figure it out. And I went to see my therapist, I went to see my doctor, and every time I'd go within the first year, it was always, no, you don't have postpartum depression, you don't have postpartum blues, so maybe it's just the adjustment period. Give yourself some time. But I knew that something was off, so I continued just asking questions. And every time I would go, it was always, no, you don't check all the boxes, you're okay, just give it some time. Until finally, I spoke to someone who was friends with a social worker, and she was like, well, maybe you should go and see her because she specializes in postpartum depression and other I guess, areas or specializations pertaining to after women give birth, the postpartum period. So I went to see her, and I told her that these are the symptoms I've been having, flashbacks. If I see commercials about babies or diapers or anything like that, it would often bring me to tears. We finally realized that I had PTSD, which it threw me off, because at least finally I had a label and a title for what I had and what I knew was happening to me. But at the same time, it took me almost 18 months to have that diagnosed. And it changed me for sure. But during that process, I knew that I still wanted to get myself out of that deep, dark hole that I was in. And I didn't know exactly how to do it. But what I found so helpful was just the opportunity to start talking, to share my story, and to give all of the details around everything that happened and that had transpired before my twins were born and even afterwards. Because I think a lot of times we pull ourselves back and we think that we're doing other people a favor by keeping some of the details of our story to us and not sharing everything. But I found that was hurting myself, because there was a lot that I still felt like I had to share and I wanted to say. So when I finally got the opportunity to do that, I found that it was a healing process for me. I started to feel as though that muscle, that voice that I had was strengthened again. And it's almost like when your muscle is atrophied, like if you have a cast on your arm for at least a month or so, your muscles get smaller, everything is weaker. But that's what I felt about my voice. And then when I started sharing all of the details and talking about everything around it, then I started to feel stronger. And every time I shared, I got that much stronger. I felt that much more confident about myself. And the mindfulness piece is something that my therapist had suggested to me, because it helped me to see that things were not as bad in the moment, in the present moment. I was able to detach myself from all of the fear and the anxiety that I had about the past situations, and also the what ifs about the future possibilities. I had no idea what the future was going to look like, but I was so concerned about it. And I was concerned about everything else that I could not control. But with mindfulness, it helped me to just stay present in the moment, understanding that right here in this moment, at what time is it? 9:03 p.m., that things are not as bad as perhaps I was feeling. And I was able to detach from the pain, the disappointment, and all of the fear and all of the other emotions that I was carrying with me. So mindfulness is something that I really incorporate in my coaching practice today, because I want my clients to understand that they have the power to make their choices about how they want the rest of their story to look like. Of course, again, we don't know what the future is going to look like, but in that moment, that's when we have the most power. We can use our voice and we can make decisions that are within our control. So that's why mindfulness is a huge piece for me. And I'm really honored to be able to be one of the mindfulness coaches in this program and this agency. So thank you for that. But what I also wanted to say, and I'm hoping that you'll be willing to do so, is I wanted to invite you to join me in a little mindfulness practice that I like to share with my clients. So if you're willing, just to sit where you are, keep your feet flat on the floor, and I invite you to close your eyes. And if you don't feel comfortable to do that, just gaze downwards towards the tip of your nose. And I want you to breathe in through your nose, feeling the full expansion of your lungs and your belly, and then exhale through the mouth. Breathing in one more time. Expand and exhale, release any stress, any tension that you might be feeling. And do that again, one more time. Inhale and exhale. And with your eyes closed or gazing downwards, just see in your mind's eye a picture of a square. And we're going to start at the top left-hand corner. We're going to breathe in for 4 counts. So breathing in, and we're going to hold our breath for 4 seconds. And exhale down as we move down the right side of the square. Hold your breath for 4 seconds at that point. Inhale again as you move along the bottom part of the square. Hold your breath at the corner. And exhale as you move up the side of the square. And then release. So I invite you to open your eyes. So that is just a quick technique. Within 5 minutes, you can do that when you're feeling anxious, when you're feeling a little bit nervous, but that's something I often like to use with my clients. So there are a lot of other techniques that I like to use with my clients, and I'm honored to have the opportunity to be able to share that along with many others with the clients that I'll be working with. So thank you for the opportunity to share. And yes, I hope you guys have a wonderful night.
Ramona.
All right. Well, thank you so much for all of that great sharing. I was feverishly taking notes, just in summary. So with Diana, boy, where do I begin? The strategies of education and recognizing that mental illness is not a choice. Such an important point. No one chooses to suffer. Changing the language in the way that we talk about mental illness and the moment that we're in, the season that we're in, and recognizing that it is not forever. and that you are not your diagnosis. That was so impactful. So impactful, and showing empathy and how we can practice empathy. Personally, I feel like a lot of the world's problems right now, especially the ones that are coming to light in this COVID season, could be tempered by just practicing more empathy. So thank you for that reminder. And breaking the silence where shame cannot thrive or exist when you give it a voice. Amazing. And Melissa, so many great points that you made about, you know, how culture plays a role with mental illness, and so many things to consider. And I think that it's you know, a great takeaway. We can also think about our own upbringing and the role that culture has played, and how much it has either allowed us room or limited us in our own ability to speak about what we struggle with mentally and emotionally. So thank you for that. And Brenda, I already feel more relaxed with that quick exercise. So I look forward to continuing to work with you. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and Madhu and Angela as well. So thank you for that. I want everybody who is still with us to know that after this event, we are going to follow up with you. We're going to summarize these key points, and we're also going to give you contact information in terms of how you can, you know, get engaged with these amazing experts through Circle of Healing Connection. And so we can continue this great work that we started. So thank you for staying with us thus far. I'm going to turn it over. I know we are over time. If you are able to stay with us, please do. I'm going to turn it over to Blair, who is going to let us know if there are any questions. If we don't get to all the questions, as we are over time, it is unlikely we're going to get to all the questions. However, we're going to put together a kind of Q&A in a post-event communication. So following this event, look out for your email. We're going to put some of your questions in there, and then answers from our experts. But I'm going to turn it over to you, Blair, for the wrap-up. Thank you.
Well, I am here to say thank you to all of our speakers, our practitioner speakers, Diana Lockett, Michelle Leroy, and Brenda Vander Zanden. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your experience, your insights, and such great practical points. I feel like we got coaching tonight. Like we were all coached by each of you tonight. As well, our artists, Sarah Warlow, for your beautiful song, and Melissa McCall, thank you so much for your donation and sharing so vulnerably your why you became an artist. And you're very talented. It is incredible that out of your vulnerable place, you are able to create such beautiful work. It's really quite amazing. Thank you, participants and donors this evening. Our GoFundMe is up to $880, and I know it's only going to grow. That's amazing. We had about 40 people here this evening, and I think that's pretty significant. As well, the auction, the instructions for the auction will come up. Ramona will put those together, and you'll get that in your post-event communication. But I also want to personally say thank you to Ramona, Madhu, and Angela for founding this incredible organization. You're taking a leap of faith here, and you created this organization for those seeking mental health supports, connecting them with those who provide them. And it's so inspiring. It's inspiring that out of your own experience, you came up with such a unique and awesome an organization that serves a large portion of society. And so congratulations on this event. Congratulations on this launch. I know you'll have many more to come, and I'm so very honored that you asked me to be your MC tonight. The one question I have is for Michelle. Michelle, if you could just briefly answer this question. I did send it to you privately earlier. How can people who come from the fourth cultural category, limitations, opinions, expressions, feelings, and emotions, break free from those limitations and cultivate a safe space to give their mental illness a voice and to get help? Are you able to speak on that? I just unmuted you, or I'm trying to here. Won't let me unmute you for some reason. Yep. Maybe Madhu. Madhu, could you unmute Michelle, please? I'm sorry, I'm not able to.
I am trying, it's not allowing me.
Michelle, need to unmute yourself. You can turn your mic on.
Or maybe, there you go.
There we go. So just to make sure I heard the question, fourth generation, can you say the rest of that? Can you repeat the rest of the question about around fourth generation? Oh, frozen. Can you guys hear me? Simone
Sorry,
said
I'm
yes.
not unmuted.
Oh, okay. Just repeat.
How can those of the fourth cultural category break free of those limitations and then cultivate a safe space to give their mental illness a voice to get help?
So number one, if you are not someone who has typically been raised in a culture or family situation where expression of your feelings and emotions was something welcomed, the first step is to start journaling and start to really understand what's going on inside of you, because that terrain now is going to be a big inner terrain for you to be able to navigate, to even be able to identify your voice in relation to all the other voices that you were you had experienced growing up. So what I would start to do is to first of all, set the intention. Today, I will break the cycle of silence for me, because that's all we can do is for ourselves, and break that silence by starting to give your inner landscape a voice. So I would start to write down feelings, emotions. It doesn't even have to make sense, your opinions, your angers, your frustrations, and start to begin that process for yourself until you can come to a place where then you can feel safe, because safe is the first feeling someone needs to be able to feel in order to express themselves to someone else. So in order for you to do that, you need to feel safe with yourself to be able to see what's on those pages, see what's in that journal, and really take a look at your inner landscape and all the things that you've kept inside, suppressed, unaddressed, unacknowledged, so you can get a good idea. So dump in journaling, and then from there, once you're able to see all that, then we can start to work to figure out what pieces of that inner landscape that you've just revealed, and you'll be shocked when you start to write what comes out that you forgot, you didn't know, you didn't remember, and you remembered. That what pieces of that are you ready now to share with others? Talk to your mom about, talk to your dad about, that aunt, that uncle, that cousin. What pieces do you feel safe and ready to now express to another? And then I work with that client to create the courage and the context and all of those things, and how they're going to be able to now take that suppressed those feelings and emotions and now express it to where they need to, want to, and so we work through that, and we go at the pace of the client. So it's client-led, it's in their own time, in their own way, and when they're ready. And I had a 13-year-old girl that it took her 1 full year to express a paragraph to her father, something that had been embedded in her for, since she was about 3-4 years old. So we know that there's no one size fits all, that we work at the pace of the client in their readiness, and that safety is the first factor for someone to truly be able to fully open up and tell the truth. So as a coach, we provide a safe, loving, lion-hearted space for people to tell the truth and get to their own knowing on how to resolve the issues that they're feeling. Hope that's, yeah. So start writing it down, start writing it down, start writing it down. Even if your hand shakes, even if the pen shakes, even if, there's going to be a lot of physical things happening. You might have some leaky eye syndrome, all kinds of, you might feel that anger as fresh as day as you felt it all those years ago. So you can be having physical experiences as you're reliving those feelings and emotions. So I'd start there and just be kind to yourself. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Brenda, I have a question for you. How can we ease into practicing mindfulness to gain better control of our emotional trauma and triggers? Oops, sorry. There we go, unmute.
Okay, we're good. So one thing I suggest to a lot of my clients is to start by journaling. So similar to what Michelle had said, but that way you get a chance to talk, to write down and to be face-to-face with your emotions. It's just you and the piece of paper. No one else is looking at it. No one else has to hear what you have to say, but it gives you a chance to at least make sense of everything that happened. And you start to unearth a lot of the emotions behind certain events, or as Michelle had also said, that you recall certain things that maybe you had forgotten because the trauma was so great, or you're focused on one aspect of a bigger situation. But as you write it down, you start to feel like, oh yeah, I remember this and I remember that. And then it just becomes clearer to you. But what's really interesting about mindfulness is that from there, you can also, going forward, and when you're ready to, you can choose aspects of that story that maybe you want to later integrate into the story going forward, that you don't have to hold on to just that entire story that causes you pain. You can learn to let go of those aspects that are still causing you a lot of the trauma, and instead use the opportunities, the lessons learned from that experience, and then use that as stepping stones for forward movement in your life. So I don't know if that answers the question. I hope it does. Let me know if it doesn't.
That's awesome. I think this is a question for our founders. How can we, and I think this is, so if I'm understanding this question correctly, how can we help people, I guess, as family and friends, how can we help people who suffer mental health and they want to recover, but they can't find enough resources for help?
So I can speak a bit, and then maybe Ramona and Madhu can add on. So for people who want to start with the mental health journey, first contacting us, and then we can get the needs assessment done. And then once that's done, we connect the individual with the right practitioner, either is a life coach or a psychotherapist. We match, we do the 360-degree support to first with the matching and to be the bridge of finding the healing that individual need. And from there on, after we find the match, we book the appointment for that individual with the right practitioner. So from there on, we monitor the progress, and we have a close communication with the practitioner and see what's the progress like, and then see if at any point need to switch to another practitioner, because at the different level of counseling, that individual might progress already. So might need to be another practitioner who can meet the needs even further. So this is definitely, it's an ongoing journey to get better with any mental health issues. So we're there along the way of the individual who desires to get better. So maybe Madhu or Ramona, if you guys have something to add on to it.
Sure, I would like to just add on to that. I mean, from our personal experiences, what we know of is what truly helps is recognizing that we need that help and then moving forward. And once you come to us, we will take care of you because we know what it means to have that friend who you can depend on. Because we've all been there, we have depended on those people. So we will connect you to the right people. And just in case if you're not happy with that counselor or coach, you can come back to us and we'll connect you to the other one till you find your suitable match, till you're happy, till you feel like, yes, this is the person I connect with. There are so many ways of just recognizing that and just keep going with that. So I would truly encourage you to take that first step and trust us so that we can help you. And I guess, Ramona, you can add on to that. And if there's anything we've missed.
Yeah, no, I think both of you did a great job of going through our methodology and our approach. If anything, I would just reiterate that we do a detailed needs assessment because we do recognize that everyone has a unique journey with what they're struggling with. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach, and I think that's what makes us unique. And then we make it easy and convenient for our members to take the legwork out of all of the research that you have to do up front. We've done it for you, and we will pair you with someone who is very well suited to treat our members based on what comes back from that needs assessment. So in that kind of scenario, this is the holistic service that we are offering to our members because we know how cumbersome it can be. You know, if you have addiction, you don't know who to go to, or you're not quite sure that you're feeling depressed or that you are depressed, but you know that you're feeling sad. We will help and kind of handhold throughout that entire process because the way that you may be feeling or our members are feeling right off the bat is already daunting. So we want to make that experience as easy as we possibly can and effective as we possibly can. So I hope that answers your question.
That's awesome. So I think this is a question again for the founders. When it comes to, oh, actually, sorry, no, it's a question for Diana. Diana, are you able to talk about what services you can offer for a person who's suffered different kinds of addiction?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
So the training that I've done is from a training called Heart IQ in Amsterdam. And it's training that brings circle work into communities so that communities can heal in community. Because there is a strong understanding in this work that we have two ways of engaging and connecting in life. We can engage with what we call the vertical pathway, which is our connection to God, the source of our understanding, and the connection through our body to Mother Earth. And then we also then need to be able to connect relatably to each other, which means letting other people into our hearts and then sharing our hearts with others. And what happens with addictions is people close their physical body, their hearts down. And sometimes you can have a really strong connection to God and have an addiction, but you can't connect to other people. So the addiction is not the problem. The addiction is the symptom. I'll say that again. The addiction is not the problem. The addiction is the symptom of a disconnect on a human level where people have shut themselves down. And so through circle work that I do and the coaching that I do, I help people to open up, to be able to trust themselves, to be able to trust other people. And then through that process, we start working on the symptom. As we work through the problem, we start working on the symptom. When I put on my yoga hat, because I'm also a yoga teacher trainer, I look at symptoms as addictions as well through the lens of the chakras. And trauma through the chakras will usually predict the specific addiction that somebody might have. So if it's a specific trauma that happened at a particular age in a particular way in the body, then there's usually a predictable outcome in terms of the addiction. Again, the addiction is not the problem. It's the symptom.
Wow.
Wow.
Mhm.
That is all the questions I have received over the chat. I'm not sure if anyone has any more questions, but that was fantastic.
And thank you, Diana. And Diana will be offering 25% discount to everyone. So we'll be keeping you updated on our website. What's the promo code and how you can receive that 25% discount.
That is awesome.
That is amazing. Thank you so much, Diana. That's so generous. So thank you everyone for joining us. That is the end of our fundraiser launch event for Circle of Healing Connection. Please support this amazing organization and help those with mental health or seeking mental health supports find them, and also support them potentially financially in accessing these care services. I want to leave the last words, if I can, to any and all of our founders, just to say a final thought about this incredible organization. Ramona, you want to go first?
I was going to let Angela do the honors, but thank you. Really, I just want to say heartfelt how much this has been a labor of love, and how much the support has meant to us. It gives us some fuel, to keep going and putting these programs together. We're already motivated, but again, all of the support and the outreach and the outpouring and all of that is extra motivation. So a very, very heartfelt thank you. And also to our speakers that joined us today. We are so grateful for you. And we look forward to this very fruitful partnership with you. And Blair, to you as well. I mean, you're always such an inspiration and such a giving heart. And again, just really a lot of gratitude to you for joining on and participating in this event, and great job to everybody.
Yeah, all I can say is thank you. As everyone did a wonderful job, and definitely it's like Ramona said, it's a labor of love. I know Madhu and Ramona had countless sleepless nights over this event that we like. Sometimes the website is like having technical glitch, and then something went wrong, and then we would quickly let's fix it. So I appreciate their solution-oriented mentality, and I can see this organization, this nonprofit organization, would definitely bring more transformation of life together. Thank you, everyone.
Well, truly, thank you everyone for joining us, for supporting us, for showing so much love. It is overwhelming, truly. All the responses that we've received on social media, even here, and the attendance, it speaks volume. I humbly thank you, each and everyone, for joining us and for just supporting us in the cause, and realizing that we've been silenced for too long, and we need to speak up, and we need to do something about it, not just be in that little bubble that if we don't talk about, if we don't address, maybe it will go away. It might not. It might even get worse. So let's help ourselves, help our loved ones, and raise this community to a level where all and everybody can live almost happy life. Thank you.
Everyone, have a great night.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
staying with us. We went over time, but thank you.
Thank you.